Hey there, superstar. In this video, I'm going to share with you how to make sure that you implement what you've just learned. Say if you go to an event or a conference or something like that, and you have a whole long list of things to do, this will help you get them done. Have you ever gone to a conference or an event or a seminar and taken so many notes and gotten so many great ideas, and then 3, 4, 6 months later, you find that list somewhere and you realize you did nothing that's on the list? Well, that used to be me, and it used to happen every single time, to the point where I even stopped going to events because I said, what's the point of getting all these amazing ideas and then never implementing any of them? So I'm not judging, I am commiserating. I am one of you, and I've been where you are. And so what I've done is I've developed a few strategies to help me get things done. And the strategies are very entrepreneur / ADD friendly. This is for you if you fully want and intend to have all these great ideas that you want to implement, and you just don't get around to them because you're so busy, because you're an entrepreneur, because you're handling so many things. So the catalyst for me discovering this was actually a pretty painful experience. It happened about, 10 years ago. I was at the time doing this thing called the Women's Success Summit. I was putting together this big event in Miami twice a year. And I think it was my second or third Women's Success Summit with like 400 or 500 women in the audience. And I invited my best friend from college, Eugenia Kim, to come down and let me interview her on stage. Now, the reason I invited Eugenia Kim was because she was a successful hat designer. She had built this incredible business doing the thing that she loved the most, designing hats. And the truth is, I was a better student than Eugenia in college. I got better grades, and actually, she'll tell you this herself, she used to take my notes and use my notes to study for our tests. And I would still get better grades. So by all kind of logical accounts, one would think that I would be, quote unquote, more successful than Eugenia. But the truth is, 10 years ago, Eugenia was doing much, much better in her business than I was. And so I invited her down so that I could interview her on stage for my audience. Hint, it was actually for me too, because I wanted to understand, how did she do this? How did someone who wasn't as good as me in school, who was, got fired from her first job as an assistant, I don't think she would mind me telling you that, why was she doing so well? I wanted to figure out the secret. So I will never forget, I was sitting on stage, we were both on these sofas. I remember asking Eugenia, what does your day look like, Euge? Tell me what your, routine is. What time do you go to work? And what do you do when you're in the office? And she goes, oh, actually, I don't go to the office very much anymore. And I was like, what? How do you have this really huge, successful, incredible business and you're not at the office every single day? She said, no, well, what I discovered is that my team doesn't really like it when I come to the office because I mess everything up. She said, I spend my time doing the things that I do best. I go shopping, I look at fabrics, I look at buttons, I spend my time traveling and getting ideas for my next line. And then I let my team and my staff take care of everything else. And that was a mind blower for me. Luckily, a photographer caught where you can see my discomfort, because I realized that Eugenia had figured out something so obvious and so important that I had not figured out yet. She had figured how to leverage her strengths and her gifts and focus entirely on those in her business. Meanwhile, I was on that stage too, and I was interviewing her, but the moment I got off the stage, people would run up to me and say, hey, Michelle, here's a bag full of business cards from the front of the registration area. What do you want me to do with these? And somebody else would say, hey, there's a problem with this client. What are we going to do with the sponsor? And all these things. I was the one person that had to do everything in the business. I had not figured out how to leverage myself or how to focus on my gifts. So how does this relate to getting things done after an event and walking away from a conference and getting your to-do list done? Well, this is how. There are 3 things that you can do to leverage yourself so that you are in your area of genius doing what you need to do, and you're leveraging the gifts of others to do the things you don't do very well. So there are 3 things. The first is people, the second is processes, and the third is practices. By the way, before we get into these 3 practices, I want to invite you to take a moment, subscribe to my channel, hit the like button for this video, and take an opportunity to make a comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. I call these three things structures of support. Now, the first one, people. It's finding people to support you in holding you accountable. So for example, what that looks like for me now is that I take all my notes from my event and I always schedule a call right after my event with either my operations director or my assistant and say, here's my list. Let's go through this list and come up with a plan, AKA a process, that's point number 2, for each of the items on this list. And so once we go through each item, we either cross it out, say, okay, we're not gonna do that, or we set when we're gonna do it. Like, when does this fit in? Do we wanna do this in the short term, wanna do it in the mean term, or is this a long-term project? So that's the second thing. And then we come up with a process for each item. All right, here's step 1, step 2, step 3. Here's how we're gonna execute this thing. And then finally, the practices are, what do I need to do on a consistent basis to support getting this process implemented into my business? What do you need to do on a consistent basis? So every single person that's part of this project has to come up with what is the practice, what is the to-do, what is the thing that needs to get done in order to implement this outcome. Now, I'll tell you, I get all these amazing ideas, but as we start going through the list, usually about half of the things, we just cross them right out. We say, you know what? This is a great idea in theory, but do we really need to do this? Is this really gonna move the needle on the business? And just by giving it the moment of thinking about it, talking about it, saying, well, what could it look like? You know, more often than not, we can cross it out or say, hey, that's a long-term plan. Let's put it on our annual planning list and take a look at it in December. Now, it might seem like I get things done all the time. It might seem like I'm so disciplined and so organized. Well, the truth is I'm actually not. What you might not know about me, and I'm gonna vulnerably share with you, is that if you've ever heard of a test called StrengthsFinder, StrengthsFinder basically gives you 34 strengths and ranks them in order of how much you have that strength. So for example, my StrengthsFinder top strengths are strategic thinking, creative, futuristic, activator, and input, whatever that means. You may or may not know, it doesn't matter. The point is that what's not up there is discipline. And in fact, discipline isn't in my top 5, it isn't in my top 10, it isn't in my 20, it isn't in my top 25 or 30. Discipline is my 34th out of 34 strengths. It's my dead last strength. I tell you this because if I can implement and if I can activate other people to support me and if I can leverage my gifts, then I know that you can too. Because chances are you have more discipline than I do, which is usually what it takes in order to have the willpower to stick with things and implement things. The key is to leverage your gifts and your strengths and to focus on the 3 Ps: people, processes, and practices. I hope this video was inspiring for you and helped you think about ways that you can implement all the amazing ideas that you have. If you're someone who's looking to build a business kind of like mine, or you want to build or grow your coaching and consulting practice, let's connect. You can find out how to book time with me at superstaractivator.com/go so you can learn more about my programs and how I might be able to support you.